Welcome to game two of the Kasparov-Kramnik match, and Kramnik is playing white and he opens the game with d4. Kramnik normally used to open his games with knight to f3 as the first move, and it's not really surprising he would go d4 because sometimes he would play d4. But him starting the match with d4 means he was actually thoroughly prepared for all the main lines Kasparov could give him against d4. And after knight f6, c4, g6, knight c3, Kasparov goes into an opening which he had been relying on for years, which was the Grunfeld. Kramnik does not shy away from the challenge, takes on d5, takes on d5, e4, knight takes c3. This is the main line of the Grunfeld defense. And after b takes c3, bishop g7, knight f3, c5. These are usual moves. Uh, Kramnik goes bishop e3. This was the first time Kramnik had used this system against Kasparov. Um, his this line had occurred a lot in the couple of Kasparov matches, and I think Kapov started with bishop e3 first. Nevertheless, we get a similar position, and Kasparov goes queen a5. The idea being he's now threatening to take on d4, and you can't take with the pawn, so queen d2, and here Kasparov goes bishop g4. A more usual and regular move is knight c6. Um, and after knight c6, we get a game. It was a game which was played a little bit earlier than this. That's the earlier reference game I could get. Knight c6 and after rook c1. Because you see, you can get away with knight c6 because the pawn can't go to d4 because of bishop c3. That's why Yamolinsky actually played rook c1 to protect against this so he can make some action maybe in the center. The Grunfeld is a tricky opening. And with bishop g4, Kasparov is adopting a show me attitude. Uh, how are you going to deal with this? Because if you approach it passively, let's say bishop e2, Black is going to have the initiative here. He's going to take on f3, you take on f3, take on d4, pawn takes, and then take on d2, forcing you to take with the king and putting pressure on the center with knight c6, rook d8. So with bishop g4, it forces white to do something about the center. I've actually had a similar position when I was younger and couldn't figure out how to resolve this. And Kramnik's solution is very practical. He realizes that, okay, bishop g4 abandons b7 quickly and simply just plays rook b1. He's willing to accept damage on the king side because actually it's very difficult for black to attack the king side in this setup because most of his pieces are much more oriented on the queen side. And by playing rook b1, he also introduces a threat, a simple threat like rook b5, pushing black back, and white would be very happy with a scenario like that. And this is one of the reasons which makes this position now very difficult for black in a way. You could simply defend this by playing something like queen c7, but if you do this, you've already given up on getting an advantage, and white will definitely walk all over you. So you can also play something like this because the queen is now stuck on the wrong side of the board, and there's a lot of annoying threats to do with this. And Kasparov, being Kasparov, obviously solves it in the most dynamic way and plays a6 to prevent b5, effectively sacrificing the b7 pawn, be it sometimes, temporarily, because Black has got a lot of activity in this position, and he hopes to take on f3 and damage the king side as compensation. So there's quite a lot of give and take in the process. Okay. Um, Here, Kramnik takes up the challenge and takes on b7, which is quite a brave move. Kasparov takes on f3, makes sure he does this before white plays bishop e2, which would mean that there's no compensation here. So g takes f3, and now knight to c6. Again, you can't do anything here because c3 is still weak. So knight c6, and Kramnik goes bishop c4. And what kind of made it very uncomfortable for Kasparov was Kramnik was playing very quick these moves. So it means that he had seen them and he had prepared for them. So after bishop c4, Kasparov castles and Kramnik castles. And we reach this position, which is the starting point of the battle for game number 2. So I'll catch you up on video number 2, where we now go into what strategies will white implement to consolidate his advantage and what a counterplay can black come up with in this position.